Welcome back to Duluth Junction Workshop. I'm Tyler. I know I've been hitting it pretty hard in the F600 and Sonnet lately, but I got some goals this summer and I'm gonna hit them. So we're gonna keep going on this thing. I want to get this thing on the road with lights, with brakes, driving to work, legally insured, all that stuff by the end of the summer. So we got to keep going on it. I already made a couple brake lines and we're gonna finish the others on camera for you. And then we're going to bleed the hydrovac unit along with the rest of the system and hopefully throw a couple taillights on this thing, run some temporary wiring for it, and see if we can get this thing on the road. It's been off the road for a long time. I did a little video on hydrovac brake boosters a while back, so if you haven't seen that, go check it out. Essentially, any brake booster will have a diaphragm with engine vacuum on both sides, and there's a valve that you actuate by pushing the brake pedal. The valve lets atmospheric pressure in, and that pushes the diaphragm and gives you a little bit of power assist on there. So the difference between normal boosters and hydrovac boosters, the normal boosters, your push rod from your brake pedal will push directly on that valve and let the atmospheric air in. And in a hydrovac, you actually have a brake line and you push brake fluid down that line, and the fluid itself pushes open the valve. So kind of an interesting thing. It allows you to mount the booster remotely and not have to take up space in the engine bay with that. Basically what we have going on here is a 5/16 brake line coming down from the master cylinder, and then it comes into a little elbow fitting on the frame rail. The elbow goes into this S-shaped pipe or line, and that goes into the hydrovac valve, you know, the valve that opens and allows atmospheric air in. Of course, to hook the line up to the master cylinder, we have to actually install a master cylinder, so let's do that. The first item is to take this push rod out. Remember that push rod actuates the master, which sends fluid down to the hydrovac. So I'm going to grab this nut, take that off. We should be able to recondition this rod enough to put it back into the new master. Looks pretty shiny to me. While the rust fix dries, we may as well throw the master in, and this is a brand new master from Napa, so amazingly you can buy these. I don't think it matters which way these go into each other, really. Is that how it works? I don't know. Maybe. Get that coming back out here. I don't know if that's the ideal location for it, but it's where the line wants to sit. Let's say it goes like this. You may have noticed that I have only done the front brakes in this truck so far, so I'm going to put a little plug in the back. And this will just plug off the rear end of the truck. I mean, this thing has huge brakes, so we should have no problem stopping it. Not a permanent solution, only temporary. Alright, it is the weekend. It's a little bit rainy today, so we put up a canopy. Hopefully the sound is okay for you guys at home. Dad is here rained out of his project, so he's going to be working on
putting the push rod in the master cylinder and hooking it to the brake pedal.
Yeah, so I threw some rust fix on this thing earlier. That's stable. We're going to put a little dab of grease on there and then everything back together.
Yeah.
And I also have some copper washers that we're going to throw on the master cylinder adapter and the hydrovac adapters, so those will seal. In the meantime, I'm going to throw the hoses on and try to line up all these brake lines that I made. Try to finish those up. Hi.
Was it?
Got one.
Oh.
Down here with the wheel cylinder and the new hose. So I know these hoses are listed on Napa, but I just decided I would go have Brake Warehouse do this since they did everything else. Very nice.
It works, but we got no pressure.
No pressure? I'll have to bleed it a little bit. How about that? right, so that's in where it's gonna be. It's not tightened up yet, but it's secure. So let's put the other one on, and then we can test fit those brake lines. I accidentally shit myself. All right.
Where's that line? They just want to
Here it
test
is.
it again.
Oh, that's nice. That's good. Got plenty of room in there. So what are you doing with this thing?
Just put two brake clips together because we need to hold this.
Space it away from the chassis, right?
Yeah.
Get everything situated pretty well here. You can see our master cylinder line comes through here, crosses through the frame, actuates that air valve, and the valve takes atmospheric air from a little nipple on the top here that comes from the cab. There's a little air filter there with a hose that comes down there. There's another hose that brings vacuum air in this side, and that goes over to here. This line goes up to the intake manifold. So my dad's gonna run the lines on the hoses on those if we have any hose in stock right now. I'm gonna go on the other side. We need to make sure that all of the old lines fit up on the other side, and we can look at kind of where they sit and then hold up the new ones and make sure that I'm gonna bend them and flare them in the right place. Well, I bent this Nycop one up ahead of time, and it kind of matches that old line, and I tried to match all the different bends that it took, and then I put up on the truck and I realized that the old one was probably supposed to be straight the entire way, and you can see it's far from straight. So I think all this careful bending of all the little angles there is probably all for naught. Gotta take the bender here. This is a loaner tool bender, and bend this thing back straight, which really sucks because I have a 90-degree on here, so I can't put my tubing bender back on it and straighten that out. So we have our main fitting here on the high pressure side of the hydrovac that comes through. Normally we'd have a line coming off the top to go to the rear brakes. Stoplight switch from an F100 of the same year, and I think that's the same thing for a lot of years and a lot of vehicles. This one coming straight off the front here goes over, down under the cross member, under the transmission, and then loops around, goes straight to the passenger wheel. The one that comes off the back here, of course, loops and then goes straight under the steering box and to the driver wheel. I was able to reuse some of these, I don't know if these are original clips or not, but a couple of them were still here and intact, so I hooked into them. And then for the rest of them, we got a couple P-clamps going on. P-clamp there, P-clamp here, P-clamp on that side. That'll hold this line nice intact. And I think we are going to go and work on hoses on the hydrovac tomorrow morning. So we got our copper washer in behind the adapter here. The line goes down, works out pretty well. Up here we have a vacuum line from the intake manifold, and that supplies the vacuum to the hydrovac. Now originally that was hooked up over here onto this fitting, but in the instructions in the hydrovac rebuild, they said you need to run the hose up about 11 inches above the intake manifold port in order to keep any wayward oil or anything from the engine area from getting into the hydrovac, because oil will ruin the hydrovac immediately, apparently. So we're gonna run this. I'm gonna take a self-tapper basically and run it into the firewall. When I get a nicer cab, we'll do something better on there. But the other hose we have to replace is in here. We have a air filter right here behind the seat. That's going to have a 1/2 inch hose that goes down through this hole in the floor, and that goes into the atmospheric inlet in the hydrovac. A lot of the stuff we're doing is not normal for firewall mounted boosters, so it's kind of fun to get in here and learn how all the lines are run and all this stuff. Of course, non-ABS, no disc brakes, anything like that. It's just really dead simple stuff if you know how the hydrovac works in theory. So we're very excited. We're gonna throw these hoses on tomorrow. We're gonna try to bleed the hydrovac and the front brakes. There's zero fluid in anything in this truck right now. So we're gonna go to that. But first, we're gonna, watch a movie tonight and enjoy ourselves. So I'll see you tomorrow. Hopefully it's not as gloomy, but it probably will be. Well, the next day we got our original master cylinder cap here cleaned up a little bit. A little polish on that. Over here with some 1/2-inch hose. Got that run in and a PCV grommet from Chrysler. And that's gonna be, I think, perfect there. It's a 1 1/4 inch hole. I'll give the part number there. A couple hose clamps. We're gonna get that run up. And then we are going to go in here and bleed the brakes. Bleeding the brakes with a hydrovac is very similar to bleeding the brakes with any other system, but there's one thing you gotta keep track of with the hydrovac. You do want to bleed the hydrovac first. So run your fluid through and then bleed as far away from the diaphragm as possible if there are multiple bleeders, and then work your way toward the diaphragm. Once that is bled, you can run your fluid out to your normal brakes the way you would and do your furthest wheel first. So we're gonna do that, and hopefully it works out. We had a little bit of leaking from the bleed screw up here, so we're gonna have to be careful, be a little bit more gentle with the pedal here. And I'm gonna wipe that off. Already full here, so we're gonna dump this out and keep filling and see if we can get through this thing. We're gonna go on to the passenger wheel cylinder and then driver wheel cylinder, and we should be.
Oh, something's running back to you big time.
Uh-oh. Turns out this fitting was never tightened down, so got that tightened down and she stopped leaking. I'll have to go and bleed that hydrovac again and do some little EPA measures here. Whoops. Up. One more, down. Up, down. We'll do one more round, and I think that'll be it. I think my insurance is going to cover this truck. Okay, I'm calling it. Yep, that stopped it. That's looking good and snazzy up there. Oh, topping her off. All right. Yeah. We tightened up those fittings on the master cylinder, like a Toyga now, and I think we're good to go on that. So, should we take the truck for a test drive first, or should we take the canopy down and do the rest? Or
You said you want to do some other stuff before you did a test drive.
yeah, kind of. Let's start with the taillights. So we have a couple options here. We have some 10-year-old LED taillights for trailer, and they look pretty bad. We have some early 60s Ford Falcon taillights from the junkyard, and they look pretty cool. What I'm gonna choose is the ugly trailer lights, because we're going to extend this chassis a couple feet longer, and we're going to put a ramp bed on it so we can haul cars on it. So that means that everything that I put on right now has to come off in the future to be redone with the ramp bed. So instead of going and trying to make, cut the right hole and make the right bracket for that, these have 2 screws each. We can just throw them on whatever and run some wiring in with a little disconnect here, and that should be plenty good enough to get it on the road right now. Another consideration is the mud flaps. Now I pulled this mud flap off the side of the highway earlier this year during a road cleanup, so I've been saving that. That was loud. I got a new one as well. So we have 2 mud flaps. We gotta hang them up here somewhere. I have a couple holes here, and I think I have a piece of metal that'll work. This is part of the crate that my dad's wood sawmill was delivered in. So we have actually a perfect solution here, I think, which already has a triangulated bracket here, and we can just bolt this right up here, cut it off here, cut all these off, and we'll have a place to mount a mud flap. I think that'll hold well enough to run back and forth to work a couple times and just take this down to a car show and make it easy. And with the gearing on this thing, I think I might need this too. Guess I better fix that. Let's make another, paint them both, and we'll throw them on. I sprayed some rusty metal primer on the mud flap brackets here, so it's time to go make some super simple light brackets. Several hours later, I think it's almost done. These things came out looking okay. They're not quite square. I guess the box that they came off of wasn't quite square, but these bent up okay. I got my light in there. We're gonna run zip ties through these holes and hold the wires down, across over there. Also got my zip tie holes here, and I got my license plate mounted, so that's pretty cool. Mud flaps are on, taillights are on, the license plate is on, and there's an integrated license plate light under that taillight, so we're good. There was a casualty. I was trying to poke some holes in the mud flap here, and they come kind of pre-punched out, but you need to just do that final punch through. The top few holes on this thing, I was just doing a little test. Top few, you can punch it through just like with a center punch in your hand, and it was super easy, like waffle thin. And then I went to do the second ones that I actually want to do with my Swiss Army knife, and oh, that's a little thicker. The Swiss Army knife folded up right on my thumb, so all those years of Boy Scout training apparently all for naught. Anyway, I'm just gonna bleed here for a while, and we're gonna throw the wheels on. Once we get the wheels on, we'll drop her on the ground, and Dad's gonna go over what he found in the wiring and what we're gonna do about it. The other fun thing is I realize it's Monday right now, and on Wednesday there's the local downtown car show. So if we can get this thing together, I'd like to take it down to the car show for the inaugural drive and see what we can break.
So it appears that maybe the wiring got cut where it went through the firewall. There's no grommet up on top here. So there's Scotch locks on both sides of the firewall with random color wires hooked to them. So,
They didn't match the colors of the wires?
no, so it was really tough to trace. Found the old harness on both sides, so I was able to trace back and forth to make sure that it had the right wires. It's kind of a mess under there, but I did go through and find all the wires I needed to find, and I probably over-labeled them, but I just wanted to make sure. Like, I didn't know what these two loose ones were for, and they're for the front turn signals. So this is the harness that was on the truck going front to back. I don't know what this wire was here, but some of it might have been put in when the truck was extended. I know that this is an original harness because these are the two brake light switches, and then we have a yellow turn signal, a green turn signal, and a brown is the tail light. So this piece is original. This piece is not because it doesn't contain enough wires.
Looks like an extension cord, doesn't it?
Yeah, it only has 3 wires. I think it is an extension cord. And then from here back, this is the original harness, brown, green, and yellow.
The wrap looks just like on my F100.
But then you go back down here, and there was some splicing going on. I don't know what that was about. Maybe that's where they extended the truck. I don't know. And then it goes back to the original harness again there.
Yeah. And that was all hanging down by the carrier bearing. It was a mess.
Right.
So what do we got going on here? I picked up this trailer wiring roll, and that's all labeled, which is nice.
Yep. So we've got that strung all the way up. We're going to pull that through the firewall and connect them inside the firewall to the wires there.
Okay.
And then once we do that, then we'll pull her tight and connect these back here. So
sounds pretty much like a plug and play to the existing wires.
correct. Yeah.
I was pretty concerned with those Scotch locks that it was going to be kind of hard to deal with.
Yeah, so we'll do some shrink wrap on the connectors and do it upright.
Sweet. And
I think
then,
at some point it probably is worth getting a new harness for the truck, but
yeah, or making one. I mean,
Yeah.
we're going to put a whole new cab on this thing, so this is just to get us by for the meantime, make it legal. And this thing, so we can kind of unplug it and move it around if we need to. If there's any reason we need to take it off, we can kind of do that, right?
well, we're going to redo the back end, right? So we're going to need
Yeah.
to unplug it and slide everything back.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's enough torque.
Yep.
Were you able to figure out how to split those wires at the end?
So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 wires coming out, 4 wires going in.
All right, so you just take 2 and 2. Very nice. Thanks, Dad, for throwing in the wire back there. I crimped a couple connections myself, and it was pretty smooth. So I'm going to get in this thing. We bled the brakes. We didn't test them, really. I mean, tested kind of moving the drum, but not on the road. We didn't test the taillights or headlights. I think we have maybe one headlight, but I'm going to try to turn it on and drive down the driveway, see what happens. Still no muffler, so it's going to be super loud. That's tomorrow's project. But let's see what happens here. See if it works. And the battery charging half an hour. It's not quite full, but we'll see if this starts now. Otherwise, we got to charge it overnight and try again. Ignition. You know what that means? I have owned this truck for over 1.5 years, and for the first time I'm taking the keys out of the ignition and hanging them up inside, because technically it's roadworthy. I'm honestly pretty happy with how the test drive went last night. The brakes work really well. Of course, I haven't had it on pavement yet, but I didn't notice any pulling right or left. So we have a couple things to do before the car show tomorrow. I'm trying to drive it to work tomorrow, which is halfway to the car show. And so we need to put a muffler on it. I'll be handling that. Got to pull the whole exhaust off probably and see where I can actually weld to, because the pipe is really thin. And then Dad is going to be inside or underneath probably looking at the brake light switch, because we didn't have brake lights, didn't have turn signals, didn't have muffler. So if we can get, we're not going to worry about the turn signals. What are you talking about?
Headlights.
Oh, we also have one headlight, so we're going to probably try to throw a used unit in the side that has cataracts and aim them up roughly, so I have something to go by.
A little easier than the Sony.
Oh my god. This is the orientation of the exhaust in the truck. So it comes down on the driver's side, passes underneath the engine, and then goes out on the passenger side. Eventually I'd like to have it come down and then go straight back. I think they jogged it over to make room for a power takeoff unit on the driver's side. So there's really no reason to jog over, but right now I don't have time to fix that. So I think I might be able to cut down here and just barely have enough metal to maybe weld to, enough that it'll sound quieter. Not that I'm not going to have a leak, but that it'll sound quieter.
So there's 2 Scotch locks in the power wire to the brake switch. I pulled one of the Scotch locks off and tested the end of the wire, and I do have power. So I'm suspecting that there may be a problem with the Scotch locks. So now we're going to splice in a new wire without Scotch locks. The driver's side brake was not working. I unplugged and replugged the connector a couple times, and now it works. So there must have been something in that connector that was not...
A little bit of gunk over 10 years sitting.
You know, though, when I put the test light on before with the connector off, it wasn't lighting when you were doing it. So I don't know.
There's got to be some short somewhere.
Yep.
it's not too bad. Sounds like our neighbors are having a concert again. Well, we got this going on here. That's where the old clamp used to be. It was pretty rough there. I just sprayed some rust inhibitor on that stuff and then did a bead around there. So we now have a spout, we have the muffler, we have, you know, hopefully this will all be leak free. So let's throw this in the truck again. Well, the muffler is pretty far forward there. That'll have to stay the way it is for now. I think it'll be workable for driving about, you know, 20 miles tomorrow, and we'll hope for that. Got a slow moving vehicle sign so people know what to expect out there and why I'm not going 55 like the rest of them. Well, we're gonna forget about the light for now. We have one brake light and that might be enough for now. It's weird sitting in a car without seat belts, but we're gonna go run to the gas station, get a little bit, so much more civilized. Insurance, so technically we're good to go aside for that brake light.
Throw the 2-speed on.
There it is. That worked. The 2-speed worked. So now we're in high in the rear end and 4th in the transmission.
Made a difference.
Yeah, it did. Going 30 miles an hour. Pretty comfortable actually. As far as what it feels like the truck wants, 30 feels about right. That first gear really, I mean, all the drivetrain slop really stacks up on itself, you know.
I wonder if you can start in second.
Probably could. I've been thinking I should do that. We got a little bump pitch here. The only suspension for us is in the seat.
Pretty much.
Wednesday morning. Let's go to work. I just ran it, adjusted the timing, and I also, the timing is a little bit off, so I think that's part of the reason it wasn't running right. I also tightened up the exhaust header bolts. So I'm pretty sure those were loose, making some noise. A lot more civilized so far. Still have to adjust the brakes, but I might be able to do that tonight after work. I do have my 79 Schwinn strapped onto the back just in case I need it. Hoping I don't need it. But inaugural drive to actually kind of go somewhere aside from just the gas station, so. That was a clutchless shift. The truck likes to shift without a clutch, I've seen now. So you just kind of shift out, hold it against the next gear, and then when it's ready, it just pops right in. Pretty easy. You know, it's a synchronized transmission, so you don't need to time it exactly. But it seems like the clutch almost just complicates things. components that need to be replaced, I think. Just want to keep her at 40 or below, you know. I guess that's where it's gonna be. Kind of hard to park when it doesn't want to idle. Well, it idles. It just, I think I need to mess with the idle speed screw. Anyway, drove pretty smooth. No major issues. Obviously, it's a huge piece of shit, and I need to do a lot of work to it. But pretty happy with that. So let's catch back up tonight. We're gonna go to the Cruising on the Croy car show downtown and see what people think. Well, I'm at the car show. They gave me the plaque and everything, but there's already a 1958 or 9 FWD fire engine here, and that's taking the only spot that they reserve for big trucks. So I don't know what I'm gonna do. There's no public parking around here. I've been circling trying to figure something out, and apparently big toys, big problems, so. I guess I get the loser spot for having to work. I think I circled the block about 10 times, and it is kind of like doing push-ups. Got the biggest steering wheel on the face of the earth, and manual steering. I'm not against manual steering, but downtown Stillwater is not the place to do it with a big truck. So anyway, we got the car here. Honestly, it's the worst vehicle I've ever owned. It's terrible in almost every way. It's slow, it handles terribly, it's slow, it goes about 40 miles an hour. I'm sure the fuel economy is going to be horrendous. The body's in horrible condition. It needs a ton of work, and yeah, I don't know. It's really cool though, so let's keep it around. I think we can figure out some kind of way to build this thing so it actually can do maybe 55, maybe 60 at some point. Get some nicer tires maybe, but that's what this channel's for. So thank you for coming along. I really appreciate it. It's been a momentous occasion for me to get this thing out of the driveway, off of the gravel road, and to actually get it downtown Stillwater at a car show. I got the plaque to prove it. If I don't even know what people do with the plaques, but yeah, thanks for coming along. I appreciate it, and subscribe if you haven't, if you like the content, and press on.